What's up guys, D-Lips here. Today we're going to be doing a complete tier list for all of the defenders currently in Year 9 Season 1. I plan on doing this for the attackers as well, but this time we're going to be doing it a little bit differently than how we did it last time. So obviously, every few seasons I'll re-rank the operators because, different nerfs, different buffs happen, different reworks. This time around, instead of doing the S, A, B, C, D tiers, traditionally, we're going to do it so that the top tier is all the meta operators, pretty much the best operators to be using according to the game's strategy right now. And then just going down the list, we'll have great, good, okay, and then situational. So we're not going to say any operators are necessarily bad because some operators are good in the right situation. As always, I want to hear your guys' opinions down in the comments, but we're just going to go ahead and get started. We're just going to do the operators right as they appear on the bottom part of your screen here. So we're going to start off with Mute. Now Mute, he's been in the game forever. He's obviously not a part of the meta, but he is really good. He's always a good operator to have. I think he's in a really good spot right now in the game. We're going to put him in the great category. Now Smoke, he's struggling a little bit these days. They took away his deployable shield recently. He's just not doing as good. His counterpart Mute is definitely doing a little bit better, so we're gonna put him in the good category. Doc had his days. There was one point in time where he was definitely like the best fragging defender on the entirety of defense. So by no means is he meta either. It's kind of hard to say a lot of these older operators are gonna be meta, considering the meta is like always changing and it's based on what's happening in the game currently. But we're still gonna put Doc in the good category. Rook, I'm gonna kind of keep the same exact reasoning for. He's good. He deserves his flowers. He's going to go in the good category as well. Bandit's been a very consistent operator for years and years and years. Obviously a super consistent SMG with the MP7. He still has his C4. He still has all of his shock wires. Nothing's really changed with him, He's still one of those guys like Mute that's always a good operator to have. We're going to put him in the great. Now Jaeger these days just does not have what it takes, I mean, if we're talking about anti-gadget and things of that nature, I would say that Wamai is better than him right now. Obviously we'll get down to that when we're there, but I would say Jaeger has to go in the okay category. He's going to be our first submission there today. Now Pulse has just been completely overshadowed by Solus. Obviously the game strategy has changed a whole lot since Pulse has been first introduced to the game. And I'm going to say that there's not a whole lot of situations where you really want a Pulse. Like in some objectives you do want to have them. One that comes to mind is probably third floor on Cafe. You have your Pulse go sit down and train or whatever it may be somewhere on second floor and they could deny the plant from underneath. But there's a lot of objectives that really doesn't work out for, and I would say it's very different between Mute and Bandit because those are guys you always kind of want to have. Pulse isn't really a guy you always want to have. Now Castle, I think a lot of people would probably put him in the situational category as well, but I'm a big Castle lover. I really think he's great. I know it's as simple as just putting your breach charge on the Castle barricade or knifing it a few times, but all of that is really just so good with delaying time and using up utility from the attackers. And it's little things like that that actually really do matter and win you rounds. Kapkan, this is one of those guys, he's been around forever, and I think he is meta, and let me explain to you why. We're in the era of Siege, honestly we've been in the era of Siege, where it's just run and gun. You know what I mean? It's just constant Call of Duty style of play, and not that that's bad or anything, I'm also a Call of Duty player at heart, so don't get me wrong. I think in this current stage of Siege where people aren't really using their intel, their drones, Kapkan is really, really good. I'd say in the past 2 years he's really blown up, no pun intended, and I think he's definitely a worthy first submission of that meta tier. Tachanka, I'm sorry, the rework did you a little bit better, but it's still such a weak operator. You're going in situational. Like I said, anti-entry, he can be really, really good sometimes, but a lot of the times when we're talking about anti-entry, I'd rather just have Smoke, so there's not many times when I'm happy to see a Tachanka get picked on my team. Now Frost I think is a little bit different. Some people may see this as like the same kind of style as Kapkan, where people aren't really droning, they're just constantly running and gunning and running into these traps, but I don't think Frost is quite as effective as Kapkan at all. Now I do love her gun, it's great and all, but her traps are just very rarely effective. I'm going to put her in the okay category. I don't think she's necessarily situational, she doesn't really fit in with Pulse and Tachanka, but she's definitely not meta like Kapkan. Now Valk, no question, is going to be great. She has been great for years and years and years. Hopefully there's no crazy nerf to her anytime in the future. I've said it many times before, in a game where intel is everything, Valkyrie is the perfect operator. You couldn't ask for more than her. And of course her MPX is just absolutely bonkers. Cav is another one of those, those players that's going to be situational to me. She's a really cool operator design and all, and I like her, but she's just really not all that viable as you move up in the ranks, you know what I mean? So yeah, she's cool and all, she's not awful, but she doesn't really bring a whole lot to the team, there's not really a whole lot of utility there that helps us out, so we're just going to leave it at that. Now Echo in the current state with how, his yokai drones are, he doesn't have a magnified optic on his MP5 suppressed. I just don't think I can put him in the good category. Now, and this is a prime example of why I think this new tier list list template is actually really good, because if you would have asked me like a year and a half ago, Echo would have 100% gone in the meta category. But today, with the current state that he's in, we're gonna have to put him in okay. And again, this doesn't mean that he's bad by any means. It just means he's really not the greatest operator to have with the current state of the game. Now Mira is another one of those operators that has been struggling, and I'm gonna put her in the good category, and I think that's still generous. I feel like Mira is just one of those operators that's been in the game for so long and people knew how to play her so well. And then obviously with the whole big nerf to her, you can now destroy the mirrors from the outside with breaching charges or whatever, you can knife them. So she's just really not as effective anymore. There was a time where she was definitely in that great category, and 100% there was a time when she was in the meta category, but right now she's in good. Legion's been hit with some big nerfs, but I still think he is a good operator, I can't lie. He's been nerfed really heavy, like Ubisoft has been trying to figure out a way to balance him for so long now, and I'm proud that he's still hanging in there at that good category, you know what I mean? He used to be one of my favorites. Speaking of favorites, Ela is probably my favorite roamer to play of all time, and I fully recognize that she really isn't all that good. She's gonna go in the okay category. She's super fun to play, but she really hasn't been that great for a couple of years now. It's debatable to go between good and okay, but I think I'm just gonna leave it in okay. Now Vigil, I think, has the same exact reasoning as Caveira does, to be honest. I think he's definitely situational in every sense of the word. Like, he doesn't really bring a whole lot of utility, he doesn't bring a whole lot of extra help to the team. His ability is just kind of there to self-serve him as a roamer, which is good and all, but looking at this in the perspective of Rainbow Six Siege as a team strategy game, he's definitely only good in certain situations. Alibi, we're not going to think too much about. She's going in the situational tier. She's just really been irrelevant for a long time now, but depending on what rank you are, depending on where you are in the skill level, she can be good, you know what I mean? And she can also be bad, so that's why I think that situational is probably the best. Now this one might surprise a few people. Maestro is going in the meta category. In a game of Intel, I think Maestro is just really good right now. He has his 3 Evil Eye cams now as opposed to having the 2, and he's really just a beast if you use him the right way. And he has the Aldo, which is an absolute tank of a gun. Clash, I think, really fits the situational category. I think she might really be the entire embodiment of a situational operator. If you're really good at playing shield operators, specifically Clash, and you can preserve time, you know, you can stay alive to the end of a round, then Clash is great, and especially if you're in lower ranks. But if you're playing people who know how to counter Clash, or maybe it's not a very Clash-friendly map or objective, then she's not good. So we're gonna leave it at that. Cade, I think, has the exact same reasoning as Bandit. A very consistent operator with a very consistent gun, a very consistent gadget. He just brings value to the team each time someone picks him, so I think he's definitely great. You know, Mozzie got hit pretty hard. He doesn't have the P10 Roni 1.5 time scope anymore. I've actually found myself using the Commando 9 these days, but I think that his gadget is so unbelievably good in this game. The fact that you can literally take the utility from the attackers and use it for yourself, so you're not only taking their utility but also adding it to your own arsenal, is just insane to me. And obviously he's no new operator or anything, but I don't think there's anything that Ubisoft can do without nerfing his actual gadget that will take him out of the great category. You know what I mean? Like, you can nerf the Commando 9, nerf the P10 Roni, take away his speed, his armor, whatever, but his pests are just so good. I think he has to be great. Warden is situational. I have a thing against Warden mains, only because they bring so little value to the team. It's another one of those gadgets that is just so self-serving. It brings nothing to the entirety of the team. But if you're playing against a Ying or a Blitz or something like that, of course he's going to be great. So that's why I think this whole situational tier is just so amazing, because it really does capture the best and the worst of each operator. So Warden doesn't bring value all the time, but sometimes he can. Goyo, I think he's okay. I think you can definitely debate him to be situational, but I really don't think he's good. I used this reasoning earlier, but when it comes to anti-entry, I just would rather have Smoke every day of the week compared to Goyo. Wamai, I touched on this a little bit earlier with Jaeger. I just think that Wamai's in a better place in this game right now compared to Jaeger. I think he's definitely a tier above Jaeger, so we're gonna put him in good. Oryx had his time, you know what I mean? He had his time where he was meta, and we're past that time now. He's another operator with a self-serving gadget, and really is not even all that self-serving. It's kind of just cool, you know, having the Rima dash. Like, it's just sort of random, but he's by no means OP in this game right now, and that's why I think I'll continue to make these updated tier lists, because the game really can change so much. Because just a matter of, I don't know, maybe it was 8 months ago, maybe a year ago, when Oryx was 100% the most meta operator in the game. So that's just how much this can really fluctuate. He just went from the top to the bottom, you know what I mean? Now I think Melusi is actually another great example of this. We're gonna put her in the okay category, but when she first came out, she was insane, the best operator in the game by far. And obviously there's been a whole bunch of nerfs, and they're nothing really all that new. I'm pretty sure I still have Melusi somewhere around this lower category on my last tier list too, so nothing really has changed there. But yeah, so now we're moving on to Aruni. I'm gonna say again, anti-gadget is just so important in this game. We're gonna put her in the good category. She does have the Roni, and she's a pretty consistent operator. I'm normally pretty happy whenever I see her get picked, and I would say good is pretty much perfect for where she would be in. Now I'm gonna say Thunderbird is situational. I don't think that she is in a very good place in this game right now. I really think she needs a buff. I think I would always rather have a Doc than a Thunderbird. And I know that Thunderbird and Rook are two different health operators entirely, but I still think I'd rather have a Rook than a Thunderbird. So I don't know, I think Ubisoft needs to do something with her. Thorn is definitely just okay. Could you imagine if her gun was one of the ones that got an ACOG? That would have been insane, and she would have definitely been meta. But we'll just continue to fantasize about it, so we're gonna leave her in just okay. Azami, she really had a fall from grace. In one of my most recent videos from last season, I pretty much ranked all the top 10 operators in the meta at that time, and she was number 1, man. And it does pain me to say, but she is coming from all the way up here, all the way down to just the good category. So I think that's quite the fall off. Her nerf really didn't do her too well. It really does change everything with her barriers taking bullet damage now. It kind of defeats the entire purpose of her ability. Now granted, it does still slow them down, so by no means is she just okay. She is really good still. And maybe this will balance out. Maybe we'll find that it's actually fine and we'll move her up to the great category as the season goes on. We're still only a week in. It's still hard to tell, but I think good is probably where she should be. Now you're probably thinking, why are there only 2 operators in the meta category right now, and they're Kapkan and Maestro? But these last 3 operators right here are going to change things up a lot. Solis is definitely in the meta. I talked about it earlier. She really just blew Pulse out of the park. Now I fully understand that they do 2 completely different things, but I think what a Solis does is just better than what Pulse does. I think she's much more versatile, and she also has the P90, which gives her the complete advantage in the loadout department. And right now she's looking really good, I'm not gonna lie. I think she has earned that meta spot. Now I don't know what to do about this one. I'm a little bit torn with Fenrir. I think that he's probably still meta, but don't completely roast me in the comments for that one, because I am torn between putting him in meta and just great. Let me know what you guys think. From my personal experience, he is still definitely a part of the game strategy. He's one of those guys where if you're attacking and you see the defenders have a Fenrir on their side, you normally are trying to strategize against them, you know, figure out some kind of way around it. And that's really the whole point of these meta operators, you know? Some operator that really changes things up where you have to completely reapproach everything. And I think that Fenrir still falls in that category, but he could definitely be falling out by the end of the season. You know, he's had his 15 seconds of fame, I guess you could say. So we'll see how he continues to marinate. And it doesn't really make me feel too good, but I think Tuberal is going to have to be meta too. Now, I'm a little bit more confident about Tuberal being meta than Fenrir, but putting 3 operators in the meta category at the very end there is a little bit insane. Tuberal did have that nerf, and before that, he was definitely the best operator in the game. I've said it a few times already, and I've said it many times in other videos. Anti-gadget is everything in Rainbow Six Siege, both on attacker side and on defender side. And I just think what Tuberal does has really changed the entire scope of the game, and I think he's super powerful right now, even after the nerf that happened just a few months ago. So now this is the finished product here. I feel pretty good about the meta category, but I don't know how you guys are going to feel with the Kapkan and Maestro picks. The great category definitely makes sense. I don't think anyone's going to argue about that. The good category really does range from a lot of different areas, but I feel like that makes sense. You know, being in the good category, I'd say most operators in the game fall in the good category, sort of just in the middle, so it makes sense. Then everything checks out in the okay category, and situational, I think I described pretty well why all of these operators pretty much just depends on what you're dealing with at the current moment. They can be good, they can be bad, they can be whatever. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I always love having conversations with you guys. Let me know if you enjoyed this format of the tier list a little bit more than the last format. Like I said, I do plan on doing an attacker one just a few days from now, so be on the lookout for that. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.